On September 15th, Lehman Brothers filed for bankruptcy. $613 billion in debt, the largest corporate bankruptcy in American history. That single day, $1.2 trillion vanished from global markets. Millions lost their homes, tens of millions lost their jobs. But here is the part nobody talks about. Before Lehman collapsed, everyone already knew it was coming. The warnings were there, the evidence was there, people inside the system knew. And nobody stopped it. Now it's 2026. The US national debt has crossed $36 trillion. The Iran war is driving defense spending to levels not seen since World War II. And experts are starting to say the same thing they said back then. 2008 is coming again. So before we talk about what's happening now, we need to go back. Because the story we were told about 2008 was not the whole story. Lehman Brothers did not cause the financial crisis. Lehman was just the first domino that was visible enough for everyone to see fall. The real cause had been building for a decade. And once you see how it was built, what's happening in 2026 is going to feel very familiar. To understand 2008, you need to understand what America looked like before it. America was a country that bought houses. From the late 1990s into the 2000s, home prices kept going up, every year higher than the last. And banks were lending money to everyone. No income, you could get a loan. No job, you could get a loan. Bad credit history, still you could get a loan. The logic was simple. Home prices will keep rising. If you can't pay later, just sell the house and you'll be fine. Everyone believed this. Banks believed it. Buyers believed it. The government believed it. So the loans kept flowing. But banks didn't just hold those loans. They packaged thousands of them together and turned them into a single financial product. This was called a CDO, a collateralized debt obligation. In plain terms, banks took bundles of loans from people who probably couldn't pay them back, wrapped them together, and sold them as safe investments. And the whole world bought them, banks in Europe, pension funds in Asia, insurance companies everywhere. Then credit rating agencies gave these products their blessing. Moody's, Standard & Poor's, Fitch, they stamped the highest possible rating on these products, AAA, the safest investment you can make. So money kept pouring in. Then in 2006, home prices started to fall. Slowly at first, then faster. People who couldn't actually afford their loans started missing payments. The products built on those loans started losing value. Banks that had loaded up on those products started to shake. And then in September 2008, Lehman Brothers fell. That is the official story. Lehman collapsed and the crisis came. Lehman was the problem. But was it? Let's go back to September 15th, 2008. Lehman Brothers files for bankruptcy. The Dow Jones drops 500 points in a single day. Global markets collapse simultaneously. Credit markets freeze completely. Federal Reserve Chairman Ben Bernanke said, Lehman's bankruptcy triggered the crisis. Treasury Secretary Henry Paulson said, Lehman was the match that lit the fire. And that became the story. Lehman was too big, too connected. When it fell, everything connected to it fell too. Lehman was the problem. But something doesn't add up. Because Lehman didn't fall in a vacuum. 17 months before Lehman collapsed, other things were already falling. April 2007, New Century Financial filed for bankruptcy, the largest subprime mortgage lender in America. August 2007, BNP Paribas, one of France's biggest banks, froze 3 of its investment funds. It said it could no longer calculate their value. March 2008, Bear Stearns collapsed. JP Morgan bought it at a price so low it was almost an insult. July 2008, IndyMac Bank failed. 1.3 million depositors panicked. The system was already coming apart more than a year before Lehman fell. And here is the part that makes even less sense. In the months before Lehman's collapse, the US government was actively rescuing other firms. March 2008, Bear Stearns, rescued. July 2008, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, rescued. September 15th, Lehman Brothers, allowed to fail. September 16th, AIG, rescued with $85 billion. They saved a firm the day before Lehman. They saved a firm the day after Lehman, but not Lehman itself. Why? That question has never been fully answered. But what it tells us is this. Lehman was not the cause of the crisis. Lehman was the most visible collapse in a system that was already failing. Think of it this way. Imagine a forest that hasn't had rain in 10 years. The ground is bone dry. Every tree, every bush, every blade of grass is waiting to burn. One day, a single dry twig catches fire. The whole forest goes up in flames. People say that twig caused the fire. But the twig didn't cause anything. 10 years of drought caused it. The twig was just the thing everyone could point to. Lehman was that twig. So if Lehman wasn't the real cause, what was? The answer is what had been quietly building for the entire decade before. To find the real cause, you have to go back further than 2008. All the way back to 1999. That year, the U.S. Congress repealed a law called the Glass-Steagall Act. This law had been in place since 1933. It was created after the Great Depression to prevent one specific thing: commercial banks using customer deposits to make risky investments. In 1999, that protection disappeared. Almost immediately, banks started doing exactly what the law had prevented. They poured money into subprime mortgages. They built CDOs. They sold risk to the entire world while keeping the fees for themselves. Then in 2004, the SEC relaxed its leverage rules for investment banks. Before the change, banks could borrow up to $12 for every $1 they actually owned. After the change, that limit jumped to 40 to 1. Think about what that means. A bank with $1 billion of its own money could now borrow and invest $40 billion. If that investment goes up even slightly, enormous profit. If it goes down even slightly, complete collapse. The entire system was now built on borrowed air. And then home prices started falling in 2006. The dominoes began to tip. Now here is where it gets uncomfortable. Because this part of the story is not about greed that nobody saw coming. It is about warnings that everyone ignored. In 2005, Raghuram Rajan, the chief economist of the IMF, stood up at the Federal Reserve's annual conference and said, "The financial system is dangerously interconnected. The incentives are all wrong. A major crisis is possible." The response from the room. One of the most respected economists in America called him a Luddite, someone who was afraid of progress. In 2006, economist Nouriel Roubini told the IMF, "Home prices will crash, trillions of dollars will be lost, the financial system will seize up." The response, they nicknamed him Dr. Doom, a professional pessimist, nobody worth listening to. And then there is this. Internal Goldman Sachs emails, later made public during congressional investigations, showed that their own traders were describing the CDOs they were selling as, and this is a direct quote, complete garbage. At the exact same time, Goldman Sachs was selling those products to clients while secretly betting that those same products would fail. The warnings existed, the evidence existed, the people inside the machine knew. And nothing stopped. Why? Because stopping meant losing money right now. Banks were collecting fees on every loan, every CDO, every trade. This quarter's bonus was real. A future crisis was abstract. Regulators were ideologically committed to the idea that markets correct themselves. A warning was an obstacle to growth. Credit rating agencies were paid by the very banks whose products they were rating. Give a product a lower rating, lose the next contract. Everyone had a reason to keep going. Nobody had a reason to stop. This is the pattern that matters. Not greed alone, not ignorance alone. A system where every individual incentive pointed toward continuing, even when the collective outcome was guaranteed destruction. Think of it like this. An engineer tells a building owner, the foundation is cracking. This building will collapse. The owner says, rent is coming in fine this month. The inspector says, looks good to me, approved. The tenants say, property values are still going up. A year later, the building falls. Everyone turns to the engineer and asks, why didn't you warn us louder? That is exactly what happened in 2008. The warnings were loud enough. The system just had no mechanism to act on them. So the building fell. And then came the question that reveals the deepest layer of all. When it fell, who paid for it? October 2008. The U.S. government announced an emergency rescue package. $700 billion, called the Troubled Asset Relief Program, TARP. The reasoning was straightforward. These institutions were too big to fail. If they collapsed, everything collapsed with them, so the government stepped in. Citigroup received $45 billion. Bank of America received $45 billion. AIG received $182 billion. And it worked, at least on paper. The institutions were stabilized. Markets bottomed out in 2009, started recovering in 2010. By 2013, the stock market was hitting record highs. The system had been saved. That is the official story. The government acted fast. The crisis was contained. A disaster was avoided. But look at what actually happened on the ground. Between 2008 and 2012, 8.8 million Americans lost their jobs. 8.8 million families lost their homes. Tens of millions watched their retirement savings disappear in a matter of months. These were not Wall Street executives. These were teachers, factory workers, nurses, small business owners. People who had nothing to do with CDOs or leverage ratios or subprime mortgage derivatives. Now look at what was happening at the same time on Wall Street. In 2008, the very year the crisis hit, Wall Street paid out $18.4 billion in bonuses. The CEOs of the banks that received bailout money largely kept their jobs. And the number of Wall Street executives criminally prosecuted for their role in causing the financial crisis. 1. Out of an entire industry that had packaged fraudulent products, sold them to the world, and privately bet against them. 1 prosecution. But here is the part that closes the circle completely. Where did the bailout money come from? Taxpayers. The same people who lost their jobs funded the rescue of the institutions that cost them their jobs. The same people who lost their homes paid the taxes that kept the banks alive, that gave them mortgages they couldn't afford. The people who were harmed paid for the rescue of the people who harmed them. And the people who caused it kept their bonuses, kept their positions, and watched the market recover to record highs within 5 years. Think about what that looks like from the outside. A restaurant chef serves spoiled food. The customers get severely ill. The restaurant receives a government subsidy to stay open. The chef gets his year-end bonus. The customers pay their medical bills. And part of those tax dollars go toward the subsidy that kept the restaurant running. That is not a metaphor designed to be dramatic. That is structurally what occurred. The losses were socialized. The profits had already been privatized. And the system that produced the crisis was rebuilt, largely intact, with the same incentive structures in place. Because the people who had the power to change it were the same people who had benefited from it. So when it was over, the official conclusion was, Lehman Brothers caused the crisis. The government saved the system. We learned our lesson. But the structure underneath had not changed. The incentives had not changed. And now, in 2026, with a war driving debt to historic levels, and the same warnings starting to appear from the same kinds of voices who were called pessimists back then, the question is not whether the pattern is familiar. It clearly is. The question is who, when this one breaks, will pay for it again. Let's go back to where we started. September 15, 2008, Lehman Brothers collapsed, and the financial crisis came. That is what we were told. But here is what we actually saw. The system was cracking 17 months before Lehman fell. Warnings were being made as early as 2005. People inside the machine already knew, and nobody stopped because stopping meant losing money today. When it finally broke, the people who built the crisis were rescued, the people who lived through it paid the bill, and the structure that made it possible was put back together almost exactly as it was. Not because nobody understood what happened, but because the people with the power to change it had every reason not to. Now it is 2026. The United States is fighting a war with Iran, defense spending is surging, the national debt has passed $36 trillion. Experts are raising their hands, economists are publishing warnings. Some of the same institutions that missed 2008 the first time are quietly repositioning. And the official response sounds familiar. These are pessimists, the system is resilient, we have it under control. That is exactly what they said in 2005, exactly what they said in 2006, exactly what they said in the months before the largest financial collapse in modern history. The dry forest is here again, the ground looks the same, the warnings sound the same, the dismissals sound the same. So here is the question this story leaves you with. Was 2008 a crisis caused by Lehman Brothers, an unpredictable event that nobody could have stopped? Or was it the inevitable result of a system that knew exactly where it was going, had every incentive to keep going anyway, and made sure that when it finally arrived, the right people were protected and the right people were not? Because the answer to that question changes everything about how you read what is happening right now.